Hey guys, what's happening? Thanks for tuning in, coming back and watching. I appreciate it. Hope you're doing well, staying safe and healthy out there. And if you're new here, my name's Jim. It's great to meet you. I make tutorial videos here every week on YouTube, showing you how I use various software tools to take my images from where they are to where I want them to be. It's all about exploring my creative process, thinking outside the box, and frankly, just taking advantage of the power of these tools to craft the image that I want to have. In today's video, I'm working on a long exposure street shot from London at night, and this video is really all about how do you take a night photo and really make an impactful version of it. How do you isolate different aspects of the photo, really key in on what you need to do there, and just make a punchy, kind of awesome looking, impactful, sort of just how do you crush your night shot. So I'm going to hit reset here in a second. First, let me show you the base photo. There it is. Previously, I've cropped and straightened it because I always have to do that. But that's the base photo, and that's the final photo. I isolated a couple of areas, as I said, really focused on what I wanted to do, had kind of a clear vision of where I wanted the photo to go, and I was able to do it in Luminar quickly and easily and powerfully because of the power of layers and masks and all the tools. Let me hit reset and we'll get going. Okay, here we are, base layer. Nothing done except, of course, the crop and straighten. And really for me, the base layer is how do I get the base photo? How do I get I'm really trying to get to a starting point. That's kind of the way I think about it. So the first thing I do here is I take the temperature down to about a -48, simply because it's just too orange for me. I've got a double-decker bus blurring by, which has red and orange in it. I don't want to lose that. And as you saw in the final photo, I don't. But the overall temperature is just off for me. So I want to kind of fix that. I'm also going to pull up Smart Contrast, about 20 or so. Next thing is going to AI Accent, and there, I got to keep checking my notes. I'm at about a 22, 21, 22. Basically, just trying to add a little bit of brightness back across the photo. And then structure, I'm going to go here, AI structure, about 35. And there we go. That's my base layer. So there's my base photo, and there it is, current state. So fix the temperature, balance the light a little bit, add a little bit of contrast, add a little bit of structure. And this is where I feel like I've got to my starting point. And so what I want to do is isolate and visually pick the parts of the photo that I want to focus on, and then kind of go do the things to them that I want to do. And that's what this is about. So the next thing is I go and say plus and add new adjustment layer. Okay, new adjustment layer is in, and what I'm going to do on this layer is focus on primarily that big blur, this whole section over here on the right-hand side. I really want to amp that up. For me, even though it's blurred, it's kind of the focal point of the photo, like a bus is passing by, and I think your eye is going to follow that line of light. So you're going to go and you're going to kind of start on the right-hand side and kind of sweep that way toward the end of the street. That's how my eye works. So how I'm going to do that by starting with is a radial mask. So I'm going to go ahead and start drawing this radial mask. And I have to be honest, it's kind of hard to do a mask like this and play around with it and get it just right while I'm talking to you. So I'm working on that. I'm trying real hard to get this going. But yeah, I think that tilt is fine. I'm going to pull this back in a little bit and expand that section, therefore a little bit lower or smaller gradient zone. Now I'm going to increase that gradient zone, maybe pull this back a little bit. But as you know, maybe you don't know, but if you haven't used a radial mask, it allows you to draw a circle or oval type shape and mask either inside of that or outside of that. If I tick on this, there you go. You can see that it defaults to going outside, but I want the opposite of that. So you just come up here and hit invert, and there you go. So my mask, in other words, the edits I'm about to make are going to be impacted in the area that's highlighted in that red. You get 100% of them here, which is why, in that inner circle, I should say, which is why I made it fairly large. And then it kind of gradually decreases from that inner circle to that outer circle, and then past the outer circle, you get nothing, right? So that's really how a radial mask works. I'm maybe going to extend that a little bit, but that's my mask. I'm going to say done. So keep in mind, that's where every one of these edits is going to go. And I will be looking at my notes here because I did quite a bit. So first thing again was cooling that off, and then I'm taking highlights. I'm actually bumping those up to about 30, and that's because you get those nice pops of light both in the shop windows and a couple of streaks, and I don't want to lose that. And in fact, I'm going to bring up shadows as well, so about 22 here. Next up is AI Enhance, and oops, that's Advanced Settings, that's the wrong place. AI Enhance, and I'm going to go to Accent, and I'm going to do about a 32. And so again, I'm working inside that circle. I'm brightening that area currently. Now I'm going to go add structure of about 30 to give it a little bit of crunch. And I just like, because it's a city street, I kind of want to crunch that up a little bit. I just think it looks good. In color, I'm going to go about a 24 on vibrance. And that's kind of popping some of those colors, and it's really bringing that red back. Let me show you. There's before and after. It's a little bit more vibrant. Now I'm going to go into details, and I don't do details enhancer a ton, but I'm just going to type these in. I think I did a 10 there. I got to go look. Yeah, and I did a 10 here as well. So 10 on small, 10 on medium, and then sharpen, I go to about 15. There we go. So again, I'm just cranking up a little bit of the detail. That's basically those shop windows, and I just think it creates a nice little punch in the photo. So there it is before, and there it is after. And so now that I look at it, I think I'm actually going to go more like a 20, or excuse me, about a 20 here, and maybe a 20 on medium as well, and maybe just bump up sharpening to 20 as in addition to the other one. So I'm just trying to crisp that up a little bit. I like having that little punch of detail there in the in that background and across that building facade. Okay, now I'm going to landscape enhancer. I'm getting golden hour and giving that about a 20 as well. There we go. So that's pulling back and brightening up and kind of popping some of that warm colors. Now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to get dramatic. And I don't use that one a ton, but I'm going to go about a 15 here. And that's going to give me a nice little bit of punch on top of the detail that I used in the previous tool. And now I'm going to pop over here to the Pro tab and get advanced contrast. And I'm going to check my notes here. On midtones, I'm going to about a 40. So I'm going to go ahead and just type that in. There you go. And for shadows, I'm going to do about a 25. There we go. So let me show you that. There's before and after. It's not a massive difference, but again, it's just something I experimented with. And that's what I encourage in all my videos. Hopefully I say that enough, but experiment, experiment, experiment. You never really know what a tool is going to do. Well, I shouldn't say never, but you often aren't fully clear on what it's visibly going to do for you until you see it, right? And so that's why I mess around with these. And sometimes I do these little things, but they may not seem to make a big impact. But what I do find is that even small incremental changes in multiple filters, as you do them, and then you do another one, and then you keep stacking them, you end up with a big change at the end. So you don't always have to go for big numbers to get at the end to end up with a big difference in the photo. And while I'm over here, I'm going to go into color enhancer and brilliance and warmth. I'm going to go about a 10 here. So something like that. Again, you can see the colors popping, and I'm going to take that down about a negative 25. So a little bit cooler, but a little bit more brilliant. But you can see the colors are really popping there, which of course I like quite a bit. Color contrast here, I'm going to leave the hue on red, but I'm going to go to about I'm going to just type this in, do about a 25 in the amount. And did you see the difference that made? Here's the thing, color contrast is super powerful, and it seems like this can do a great job for you, but if I turn that off, if you look at the reds and the blues primarily, back on, right? So one more time, off and on, made a huge difference, and that's because I left it in hue of red. So basically, it really pops the color that you choose and brightens that, and it seems to saturate it quite a bit, and then it tends to darken the color that's opposite. So blue is basically kind of opposite of red. So if you look at that, the blue gets a little bit darker, right, which makes it richer, but the red gets more vibrant, right? So that's why I did that, and I think that piece of the photo is looking sweet. Now, my personal preference, I like these kind of scenes. It may not be for you, but if it's too colorful or too detailed, it's just a simple slider move to tone that down. But I'm definitely going for a punchy, high-impact kind of night scene, and this, so far, has got me there. Now what I want to do is go turn this layer off and show you. Look at that section of the photo, which is basically the bus blur on the right, and turning it off. That's what we had before. So it was like, honestly, in my library, I was kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's cool. I got a streak. That's fun. I just like those kind of shots anyway. But I was kind of like, yeah, maybe it's not amazing. But now I look at it, I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I don't know, maybe not amazing, but it's definitely pretty cool. So thus far, I think I've made a nice impact on the photo. But now, as you can imagine, I've completed that section of the photo. The next section is this left side. So once again, I'm going to say plus and add new adjustment layer. And we're going to go focus on the left side of the frame. Okay, so to focus on that side of the frame, I'm kind of looking at that slanted section, which is basically most of this building and this corner down here, this section where it's like street and sidewalk. So for me, the best way to do that is to get a gradient mask. So I'm going to get a gradient, and it says click and drag to draw gradient. I'm going to drag something like this, and in Luminar 4.3 with the new update, you can see, you may know this already, that as you start creating a mask, it's going to show you where the mask is applied. So in this case, my gradient is basically hitting that left side, and you can see it over here, that tilt, just like the circle is represented over there. But now I've got that gradient, and it's impacting that left side. So I think I'm going to pull that back a little bit, maybe increase that gradient zone, and maybe tilt it a little bit more, something about like that. And boom, I'm going to say turn that off. And now we're going to jump into the editing component of this one. And this starts with the light tool. Once again, the temperature is coming down. I've done that a lot, and this time I'm doing it kind of in that left section. And the reason why is it's just too warm. And also, I really want the red and the warm to be that streaking bus. It's fiery, it's motion, it's emotion perhaps, and it's just zipping by. I kind of want to dullify, if that's a word, kind of dull that left side a little bit. So I'm going to do that. I actually do bump the exposure a tiny bit, something about like that. My contrast comes up to mid-20s, so somewhere around there. And my shadows come up a little bit as well. Now, I just said I'm going to dull that, but I'm going to, one of my subsequent moves is going to, not exactly reverse, but slightly impact what I just did. AI accent is a 15. So that's adding a little bit over there as well. And how I started this photo was, or I should say this layer when I was editing was, hey, I want to brighten that up. I want to have full visibility. But as you saw in the final result, I ended up with less visibility over here. And I'll show you why here in a minute. I'm going to go about a 20 on structure. Now keep in mind, you don't even need to look at the right side of the photo. Let's see. Yeah, it should be right to you. I could turn around sometimes because of the video, but the right side of the picture with the blur bus and all the color, not working on that. Remember, we're on a gradient mask that's been applied just on that left side. So we're kind of messing around over there. Once again, I'm going to get details, and I'm going to do about a 20 here. 20, and about a 20 here as well. I kind of like using the details on the street scene because it's a little crunchy, a little grungy, and cities to me just kind of, I don't know, they make me want to accentuate some of those things. And then golden hour, I came in here with just a light bump, like maybe a 10 or so. I just kind of warmed that up, and I was like, okay, that kind of color-wise, it kind of matches where that's got, you've got that street light here, and it's kind of it'll be beaming light onto that building and here onto the street. And of course, some of the red and the light from the bus will be coming across the concrete as well. So that kind of made sense to me. But then I went in and said, you know what I'm doing? I'm just going to stick a vignette on. But remember, we're on a gradient mask that's just on that little corner over there. So I was like, well, what's a vignette going to do? So I just went like -70 on the vignette, which is pretty significant. And you can kind of see size is like 43. And then I came in with inner light, and I made that about a 30. So basically what that did is really darken up that edge, and this more distant pop where the lights are down the street got a little bit brighter because of the inner light. So let me show you. Let me turn off vignette. There it was before, and I was totally fine with that. You got people walking by. You can kind of see a man's, I assume it's a man, a blurred leg or two there, and the other people are kind of blurred. But I was looking down the street, and it wasn't really bright enough. So that was really why I thought of vignette. I was like, well, maybe what I could do is darken that corner a little bit and maybe pop that. And let me turn this back on. And that's what vignette did. So one more time, there's off and on. It did a nice job of just getting that corner a little darker, which I liked, and a little pop of light down there at the end of the road, which it just worked perfectly for me. So that was vignette. And then for this layer, I popped over to mystical and gave that a 35, which I'm going to type in here, 35. And then I gave it a little Orton as well, and Orton's going to about 20. So 20 and enter, and there you go. And those two, as you've seen me do before, if you've been here before, they give it a little bit of shadow and moodiness. And I kind of want a little bit of shadow and moodiness over there, despite what I did at the beginning of this layer, which is kind of brighten it up with the exposure and the AI accent. This is giving it a little bit more darkness, but I don't know, they balance out kind of. And that's it for this layer. So let me turn this layer off. And again, we're just working on that left slice. And that's what's so great about a gradient. You may look at that and think, well, that's not really a straight line, but the gradient works just fine because it's coming down kind of diagonally and cutting off just that left section of the photo that I'm working on. So there it is before this layer is turned on and after. A little bit more vibrant, a little bit more moody and dramatic. The lighting's a little bit better, and I think that works better considering the amount of kind of excitement and all that that's going on the right-hand side. It's really bright, it's really detailed, it's really colorful. I think it's better to be a little darker and moodier on the left, and that helps, I think, lead your eye through the frame and follow the bus, which I think you're going to do naturally anyway, but I think it helps. So now that I've done all of that, I like to come back with a touch-up layer. So I'm going to say plus and new adjustment layer and do a couple of minor touch-ups before I wrap this up. Okay, here's my new adjustment layer. I'm going to get over here to the light tool. And once again, I'm doing a little bit of a temperature drop. And this is, I mean, I've done this on every layer. It's personal preference. I just like those cooler tones for city streets, especially at night. Visually, it's just more pleasing to me. I want the warm tones, of course, in the bus because that's what's adding the drama and kind of the excitement, but I like the cooler tones elsewhere. Personal preference, my friends, but I do that a lot. A little bit of smart contrast to give it a little bit more bump, and highlights up a tiny bit, which I don't do a lot, but I want to make sure I don't lose visibility in those brighter parts. And I wasn't really, but I want to pop them a little bit more. It's okay that you've got these bright streaks of light. I mean, it shows motion and kind of, you know, I don't know, just what's happening in a city, the activity level in a city. And so bringing up highlights a little bit is no big deal to me there. AI Enhance with AI Accent is like a 10. That's an overall brightening. And then AI Structure, another 10. And that's just kind of an overall bump in structure. And that is it, my friends. Let me show you where we started. That was my base photo. And I looked at it and I was like, you know, I love the light streaks, as I said. I like to shoot those. This is fun. There's nothing better than dragging the shutter and just getting streaks of light. This is cool to me. I'm still fascinated by these things, even 10, 12 years after doing my first one. They just excite me. You know, I guess because you never know exactly how it's going to look. Plus double-decker buses, obviously being double height, yeah, they just fill up more of the frame. So a car is going to be a thin streak, but a double-decker bus, and as you can see, I'm right on the edge of the street. I'm close. It fills up a whole bunch of the frame. Anyway, I love that kind of stuff. Point was, I looked at it in the library, and I was like, yeah, you know, it's okay. I like the streak. It's cool. It's a city street. It's London, which is like my favorite city, so blah, blah, blah. I'll play around with it, and I turned it into that. High impact, lots of fun, lots of just cool stuff going on there. And if I show you this slider before and after, I love doing this moving window. You can see so much crunchier and brighter and more vibrant on this right-hand side because of the radial mask. And then the left-hand side, I think you got some nice visibility over here going down the path, which you didn't really have before. And it's just a little bit crunchier and, I don't know, just better looking in my opinion. And that's how I really think about how do I make an impactful night shot and really kind of just crush it and get just a beautiful, you know, high energy kind of street scene at night. And a lot of it is the masking. That's how I think about it. Use the radial or gradient mask, whatever kind you may need, depending on the area that you're talking about and kind of what shape it is. But they give you the ability to specifically isolate sections of the photo and kind of go crazy and control the light and the color and the detail in them. And that's what I did on this one, my friends. So one more time, before and after. That's my whole workflow. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I'll be back soon with more stuff. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment and say, hey, Jim, this was cool. Or, hey, Jim, do something else. I don't know, whatever. But I hope you're doing well. And I'm sure I'll see you soon, my friends. I'll be back real soon with more videos. Have a great one. Take care of yourself. I'll see you later. And adios.